Hello and welcome back to another World of Warcraft Warlords of Draenor video, and this time it's going to be one for the hunters. But if you're not a hunter, well, it's probably worth listening on, at least for the first part of the video and then at the end, because I'll be giving my opinions then. And really, this has just got a lot to do with their philosophies and how they design classes, and overall, I just think it is very interesting. Now, hunters are a class that have had one or two issues in Mists of Pandaria in terms of their design, and it definitely seems like they are taking some great steps to fixing those issues. Of course, this is all subject to change. This is alpha, it's called alpha for a reason, and if there's something which cries out as being completely broken to you, then the chances are when the game actually releases and, we get through a few iterations of testing, that problem won't be there anymore. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about Blizzard's actual design philosophy, and this is basically coming straight from the horse's mouth, but I am paraphrasing. So, they said that hunters lacked distinction between the specs. Basically, in their opinion, the rotations felt pretty similar, with MM and SV being the worst offenders. Then they also felt that hunters were also one of the classes that were the most affected by ability bloat. Ability bloat's really just the idea that there's so many abilities that really not all of them are useful, but they all still need to be on your bars. It adds a lot of complexity to the game without really making it play better and be more fun. And, of course, Blizzard are driven by gameplay and fun, so hopefully that's one of the things that they want to conquer. So they're going to make some changes to each spec's rotation, and they're going to do this by removing some abilities, and then making some other abilities unique to a certain spec. For an example, Aimed Shot is now going to be the primary focus stomp for Marksmanship, instead of Arcane Shot, and Serpent Sting is going to be more of a survival-only thing. This means that those specs are going to feel very different. They've also cut down on the number of cooldowns by removing some, and then moving some other ones to the talent trees. Then we're also going to see a large reduction in the number of abilities needed, and then more distinction between the specs. They're also going to further distinguish the different specs with perks and level 100 talents. Now, I'm actually going to cover them later on in the video, so stay tuned for that information. Still though, overall, we should see a drastic reduction in the number of active buttons, and there should be a more clear distinction between the various specializations. With some of these changes, you may actually just find yourself favoring a different spec than what you previously liked, so I think there's definitely going to be a period for every hunter where we just have a look at the different specs, see how they play out, and make a decision based on that. Hopefully they will all be balanced to facilitate us making that decision though. And then also just keep in mind that the Draenor perks are earned from level 91 to 99, and these will also further distinguish these specs. So that's what Blizzard had to say in terms of their actual design philosophy. Now, how does that translate into in-game? Well, it translates through spell changes, and I'm going to cover what spells have been changed and what has been removed. So first of all, the changes. Well, Aspect of the Pack no longer appears in the stance bar and is now on the global cooldown, and the exact same treatment has been applied to Aspect of the Cheetah. Then also Aspect of the Beast, more the glyph of the Aspect of the Beast, is an ability which no longer appears in the stance bar or is on the global cooldown either, and then the same goes for the glyphed Aspect of the Cheetah. Basically, I think these are just abilities that you can use. I'm not 100% sure, but certainly interesting. And then we have some other changes. Now, these are basically focused on quality of life and then rotational consistency. So first of all, Aimed Shot will actually deal 20% more damage, and it will no longer interrupt your auto attacks. That makes it a far more viable thing to use. Then also Dismiss Pet now ignores line of sight, which is, so good. Then also Hunter Pets will now have a 1 second global cooldown. Then Black Arrow, actually its periodic effect now has a chance to cause the next 2 explosive shots to no longer trigger a cooldown, and this effect is guaranteed to activate at least once. Now that might seem a little bit similar to Lock and Load to you. Lock and Load's actually gone, and it's just being rolled into Black Arrow. Which I guess, in terms of gameplay, that doesn't really have much of an additional effect, really. Then also they said that Explosive Trap now places just a periodic damage over time effect on anything within the radius of the explosion, rather than a persistent effect on the ground. That should make it a bit stronger, actually. Then also for pets, they said that a whole bunch of pets are now no longer going to have their CC abilities, and I'm just going to rattle these off real quick. So for Basilisks, they lose Petrifying Gaze, Bats lose Sonic Blast, Birds of Prey lose Snatch, Crabs lose Pin, Cranes lose Lullaby, Crocolisks lose Ankle Crack, Dogs lose Lockjaw, Gorillas lose Pummel, Monkeys lose Bad Manners, Moths lose Serenity Dust, Netherrays lose Nether Shock, Porcupine loses Paralyzing Quill, Rhinos lose Horn Toss, Scorpids lose clench, we're nearly there. Shale spiders lose web wrap, cythalids lose venom web spray, spiders lose web, and then finally wisps also have had sting removed. Basically, this is just a part of them overall toning down the amount of CC in the game because they didn't feel that it really led to a fun PvP experience, and it shouldn't really affect PvE players too much. Then also, the entrapment root effect now shares a diminishing return with all other root effects, and that would be a nerf on balance. So that's kind of interesting. Also, traps and the trap launcher no longer have an arming time and they can trigger instantly. And traps can also no longer be disarmed. Then finally, Scare Beast has now got a 6-second duration in PvP, which is down from 8 seconds. Overall, CC is being toned down, and I think a lot of those changes do make sense. The more rotational ones are certainly interesting, but if you want to know more about the actual rotational stuff, just wait until I talk about the perks and talents and that kind of thing. So next up we have removed spells. And, well, Arcane Shot is no longer going to be there for MM. Thrill of the Hunt is actually now going to also reduce the cost of aimed shot while active, which basically preserves its value for MM hunters. Aspect of the Hawk has been removed, but it has been renamed, a new version has been renamed to Iron Hawk, which is just a passive 10% damage reduction. So they're just taking away that, that attack power boost. Of course it will be balanced, and that'll all make sense. Then also Cower has been removed, Distracting Shot has been removed, Hunter's Mark has been removed, Kill Shot is no longer available to Survival, Lock and Load has been removed and then rolled into Black Arrow, Stampede is now a level 75 talent, replacing Lynx Rush, which of course means that Lynx Rush has also been removed. Rapid has been removed, Rapid Fire has been removed, Rapid Recuperation has been removed, then Serpent Sting and Improved Serpent Sting have been removed, though Serpent Spread has been renamed Serpent Sting, and it remains a passive for survival hunters. It will cause Multi-Shot and Arcane Shot to apply the Serpent Sting poison, which does instant and periodic damage. Then also Widow Venom has been removed, and finally Revive Pet and Mend Pet share one button which toggles based on whether your pet's living. That's actually a really nice quality of life change because they are both mutually exclusive scenarios. Very good there. Alright, so next, let's talk about talents and perks, and first of all, we're going to talk about the perks. So I'll show up slides in the screen, and you'll get to see what they are. But first of all, so for BM, I think overall, they're rather interesting. The enhanced camouflage is kind of interesting, actually. Being able to use camo as a healing sort of mechanism, I think that's definitely rather cool. And then also that thing about the enhanced basic attacks where your pet's attacks have a 20% chance to reset the basic attack cooldown and make the next one free. That's kind of interesting for Burst. I'm not too sure if it would ever translate into gameplay, but hey, it's interesting. Then, of course, Empowered Pets, that's a very strong buff to the BM pets. And then Beast Cleave as well is, well, it's just nice to have that. Basically, these perks really do make your pet feel really good, and they definitely emphasize the pet. Then, of course, the other changes are really just kind of par of the course there. Okay, so next for Marksmanship, and once again, they have a few shared things, really, like the enhanced camouflage. But what's interesting is that they have enhanced kill shot, which totally makes sense within the context of a marksmanship hunter. I think that's actually really nifty and quite cool. And then also the enhanced piercing shots with your crits with multi-shot also triggering piercing shots. I think that's really nice as well. It makes sense within marksmanship. And a lot of these do feel very much spec dependent, which is nice. Then of course enhanced shots giving you an extra 5 yards range to all of your attacks. That's very interesting. I wonder what that would be like in PvP. But it makes sense, you know, a marksmanship person should be able to fire a little bit further, you know. It's flavor, when I say flavorsome, I don't mean it tastes good, you know, it's within the flavor of the spec. And I think that's definitely something hunters have lacked. Then next for the survival perks, well, we have essentially what you'd expect. Traps and venoms, things like Viper Venom giving you extra focus, camouflage no longer breaking when you take damage, then enhanced entrapment with, you know, just various things. They feel very survivalish, lots of traps, lots of explosive things. Overall, makes sense, and I'm pretty happy with them. So next for the talents, well, these are actually very interesting. So talents-wise, I think that MM and SV are pretty much the same. Now you can read those for yourself, but I think the really interesting one is Lone Wolf there. That's fascinating. It's really going to change how hunters work, and for someone like me who's perhaps constantly a little bit miffed at how pet AI can just be a little bit of a pain, I think that's definitely a very beneficial thing to have. So definitely I'm quite pleased about Lone Wolf being there. Now, if you are, yeah, anyway, so that's Lone Wolf. In terms of other things, I think Focusing Shot and Flaming Shot are both pretty cool as well. They're definitely more interesting. I like how they're augmenting previous abilities and things rather than just adding more bloat and complexity, but they should still change your playstyle. And then finally, for Beast Mastery, well, Flaming Shots and Focusing Shot are the same, but we have a new one called Versatility. Just look at that. Your pet basically is just a complete beast. No pun intended. It just makes your pet really strong. You get all these new abilities. You get 70% increased damage. A BM Hunter with these talents in combination with those perks, your pet is going to be a powerhouse. That is really cool. That's really, really, really cool. And I just love how they're really just trying to dial in with the unique individual aspects of the various specs. Overall, I'm really pleased about that. And then finally, just to round off this video, I'm going to talk about some tweets from the Blues. Of course, the people from Blizzard have been tweeting all the time, you know, clearing up things, and they've said a few things about the Hunter. Now, of course, you know, tweets, they happen a lot. People tweet a lot, and the Blizzard developers certainly are an example of that, so I'm sure there'll be more tweets that won't be covered in this video because, you know, they will have happened after the video was released. But this is just the basic things that they've said so far. Basically, we are going to get our raid buffs even if we are using Lone Wolf. That means that the pet raid buffs, they're still going to be, I think we'll just have the option of choosing from one of the 6 if we use Lone Wolf, which is certainly interesting. Then also, they said that Exploding Shot will trigger and just leave a dot on anything that it hits, so I assume anything within the range will be affected by that dot. That's definitely a net buff in my opinion. Then also, Growl's range has been increased so that it can be used in the same manner as Distracting Shot in most cases, which is pretty interesting. So they're removing Distracting Shot, but just rolling a little bit more functionality into Growl. Hopefully Growl is just a little bit more consistent and just, you know, works a bit better than it does now, because Growl can be a little bit annoying at times. Then also they said that we are keeping Counter Shot, but Scatter Shot and Silence have been removed as a part of the overall initiative to tone down on crowd control, which makes sense. And then in regards to the Kill Shot not being allowed for survival, they said that not every spec has to have an execute ability. They think it's okay, and that it definitely fits in with the kind of flavor of, for an example, Marksmanship. So I think that's definitely fair enough, and obviously all these things are going to be balanced out, so the numbers should be fine. And then finally, they mentioned that there are going to be improvements to misdirection and the way that it works, but they didn't make the cut for the patch notes, so we're probably going to hear about that soon. Alright, so that was a lot of information there, and that's essentially all that we know at this stage. That's most of it all covered and well laid out. So what do I think? Well, I think that the changes to our rotations are going to be very big, and these changes are actually going to be very much dependent on those perks. I think if you get a perk that's 20% extra damage to an ability, of course by level 100 you'll have all the perks, but it'll change things up as you level, and that's kind of interesting actually. As for the perks themselves, I like how they emphasize important abilities to a spec. Definitely makes the spec feel more unique, and then the same thing goes for the talents. I think all the talents are very cool, but of course I'm most interested in Lone Wolf and then the BM equivalent. I think that's really nice, and yeah, I think just Hunters, you know, they felt very similar, very samey for quite a while with the specializations, and I'm just really glad that they're going to fix that up. Now, in terms of the actual button bloat and the amount of abilities that have been cut, it's a lot. I think we're the most of any class. And right now, I'm not too salty. I'm actually pretty pleased. I think that for most of the time, they've been intelligent enough moves, and hopefully it'll translate to specs that just, or rotations even, that just feel really nice to play. They don't just have annoying things they need to be macroed in all the time. And, yeah, I think just because of that, Hunters should be a little bit more fun, I guess. And I'm all for fun, because I think fun is one of the reasons why I play a game like World of Warcraft. Overall, though, I'm pretty happy. Then when we move on to things like crowd controls, once again, I'm very pleased with that. I think CC was getting out of hand in PvP. I think that, especially, let's just say, patch 5.3 Hunters were ridiculous. Or was it 5.2 Hunters? One of the two. But overall, the reduction and tone down of CC is definitely probably a good thing for the game. Definitely probably is not the kind of, like, combination of words you want to use in your sentence, by the way. It sounds a bit silly, but anyway. It's probably for the good of the game. Now, one thing, just before people, you know, leave all the comments about Hunters, or how Hunters are apparently now broken, just remember, this is not a full and complete set of changes for the expansion. You know, this is very tentative. The beta hasn't even happened yet. There's a lot of testing to go on, so this is going to be an iterative process, and they're going to refine their vision for hunters as time goes on throughout the beta, and, eventually we'll have a class that should hopefully feel really nice to play. Honestly, they can't afford to balls it up, so I don't think they will. But anyway, yeah, let me know your initial thoughts, and thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned to the channel for all the latest Warlords of Draenor coverage. There will be a lot of it, and I'll see you in the next video.